And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson and Johnson. We are through the wild card series in this year's MLB playoffs, and some history was made during this wild card series, which was some very interesting postseason baseball as well. I think 3 or 4 series. I don't think this. I know this. 3 or 4 series all went to game deciding number three. One series did end in a sweep, but it did lead to some do or die baseball this past week. And now, as of today, Saturday morning of October 4th, we have our division round series matchups. We'll be previewing those division round series matchups a little bit later on in the show. And those matchups, as of today, will be taking place in the MLB world.
Yeah, really great divisional series. I can't remember the last time divisional series. Great wild card series. I can't remember the last time anyone had this.
Yeah, we're now down to the last couple of teams. The 8 teams exactly remain in this MLB postseason, and now it's our job, Johnson, to see who moves on to the divisional round of this year's MLB postseason. So let's get things started, and let's start off with this first matchup of the wild card series. And I mentioned that there was some history in this wild cards matchup. Let's talk about the history that was made, that being from the New York Yankees. They lose game one to the Boston Red Sox in their 3 game series, but they were the first team in this new 3 game format for the wild card series to come back from a 1-0 deficit and win the final 2 games of the series. They lose game one 3-1. They win game two 4-3. And then on Thursday, they win the final game of the series 4-0. They now move on to the wild card, to the divisional series, to take on the Toronto Blue Jays. And Johnson, they pretty much did it throughout a couple of different things. Game one, the story of that game was Garrett Crochet, what he did. Gives up a home run early to Anthony Volpe, but we saw a great job by him, rounds it back. 17 straight Yankees were retired afterwards. Despite Max Fried's best efforts, he pitched great in that game, but the Yankees take him out early in the 7th inning after he had 6 1/3 of shutout baseball. Luke Weaver comes in, really bad outing for him, unfortunately, outside of the bullpen. Gives up the go ahead 2 runs to Masataka Yoshida. Red Sox take a 2-1 lead. They get an insurance run to go up 3-1. They hold on despite the Yankees getting bases loaded, nobody outs in the 9th inning. The Yankees were not able to bring home a run. They lose that first game 3-1. Putting the Yankees in a spot where in game number two, they had a win to move to keep their season alive. And it was a really tough game because the story also in game one was no Jazz Chisholm and no Ben Rice because of the lefty Garrett Crochet. So they were in the lineup at game number two, and they were probably the deciding factor of game number two for the New York Yankees in that game. Ben Rice hits the 2-run homer in the first inning to put them up 2-0. Boston did respond and tie the game. The Yankees got back the go ahead run later on an Aaron Judge RBI single. Trevor Story hits a home run to tie the game at 3. But the deciding blow in this game, Austin Wells in the 8th inning gets an RBI single. Jazz Chisholm on 3-2 with 2 outs, able to run around the bases and score, gives the Yankees the lead. They hang on to win that second game 4-3. And then the final game of the series on Thursday, you can probably tell from the sound of my voice, it sounds a little bit raspy, and it's from this exact game. I was in attendance for this deciding game between the Yankees and the Red Sox, and Cam Schiller putting up one of the better postseason performances you'll see in these last recent years. 8 shutout innings, 12 strikeouts, 0 walks. First pitcher in postseason history to do that feat of that stat line. And that was his postseason debut as well. It's a sensational performance. He has the record now for most postseason strikeouts and as a starter in postseason Yankee history. So huge reason why the Yankees are able to win this game. They get 4 runs in the 4th inning based off a couple of bad misplays from the Red Sox defense. And the Yankees are moving on to Toronto. They will take on their division rival Blue Jays in the ALDS.
Yeah, we've got to talk about Jazz Chisholm and Ben Rice too because there is no series between the Blue Jays and the Yankees. They don't play. Uh, they were responsible for winning game number two, and if they do not win game number two, they don't win the series. Frankly, so Ben Rice, as you said, hit that big home run, and Jazz Chisholm, that was the third fastest, I guess, run time in the Statcast era, 9.16 seconds. Uh, Anyone else would have been out. Like anyone, pretty much because it was such a bang bang play that 99.99% of players would have been out. And I said this sentence a couple months ago or last year when the Yankees acquired Jazz. It was so critical because they had no one like him in their clubhouse, meaning that he draws walks at a high rate. So he was able to draw for a walk and off a single could score. And he did that exact same sequence I was talking about last year. And not only did he do it in the most dramatic fashion, he did it in the most high leverage moment of the season for the Yankees. And he made that big defensive play too that kind of sealed it. If these guys are not on your roster, you're not talking Yankees postseason baseball right now. You're saying, okay, well, let's go pack a bag to Cancun and reload for the next year And
Right.
you have to talk about Cam Schiller's dominance too. That was probably the most dominant postseason performance I've seen from a rookie making his debut. I can't think of a
Yeah,
better one.
it was weird because the vibe that night was, there was hope,
Go
but
five.
it was a mix. Keep in mind, both teams were starting a rookie in that game. For Connolly early for Red Sox, I think that was his fifth or sixth career start in his
It was.
MLB
He had like 20 innings
tenure.
pitched or something like that.
And Schiller, this was his 15th appearance since getting called up. So he had a little bit more experience, but not by much. And of course, he's a Massachusetts native, so that also was a factor in that game, too. He wanted to get that revenge, beating a team that he used to root for growing up. And, when I went into the stadium, you know, the first thing I did was I went to go get myself a nice beverage, and the worker that I went up to says Cam's going 8 innings tonight, 8 strikeouts. And I said to him, I said, if he gave me 5 innings, I would be completely content with that. I'm not expecting eight. And he knew something that I didn't know because not only did he go the 8 innings, he got an extra 4 strikeouts with it as well. It was unbelievable what I saw in that game. He was just mowing down Red Sox hitters. They had no answer for his fastball in that game, hovering around 100 to 102 miles per hour most of the night. He was just unbelievable the way he pitched. I thought for sure after the eighth inning he was going to come back out for the ninth inning because he had thrown a 7 pitch eighth inning to retire the Red Sox 1-2-3. Can't ask much more out of your starter. He saved the bullpen and gave them an extra day of rest. All he had to use David Bednar in the ninth inning to get the job done, and that's really what the Yankees needed because they've been using the bullpen for a majority of this series. After Free got taken out in game one, Rodon gave them 6 innings in game number two, but they still had to use the bullpen to a little bit of a length, and thankfully they didn't have to use it in game three.
Well, I have to say, after that disaster of a bullpen game for the Red Sox in game two, you had to assume that the Yankees were all going to win game three because everyone was exhausted. Like you had bullpen guys out there throwing 40, 50 pitches. Like they weren't going to be available for a
Right.
week at that point.
Yeah, I think that's what killed the Red Sox in the
That's
series.
really what killed them.
It was two things in the series that killed them. Their defense was really bad this series. That really hurt them because you got the play from Duran in left field that gave Aaron Judge an RBI single. And then in game four, or excuse me, game three, I'm getting my numbers off. In game three, in the fourth inning, that's where the number four is coming from. The inning starts with Cody Bellinger hitting a blooper into right center, and it falls in for a double because the Red Sox aren't able to make the play. Later in the inning, there's a ground ball from Austin Wilson to first base. It hits off of the glove of Nathaniel Lowe. That brings home 2 runs for the Yankees. The Red Sox defense in this series was really not good, and the Yankees surprisingly had a really good, solid defensive performance in this entire series, including even from Anthony Volpe, who, as we know, had a really bad regular season in terms of errors. And the other thing, as you mentioned, Alex Cora really just, after game number one, really managed this series poorly. He takes out Bello after 2 innings in game number two. They had to go bullpen the rest of the night, as you mentioned, and they lost a lot of their relievers for game three. And in that game three, when Connolly early got into trouble in that fourth inning, I was expecting him to get taken out at some point, but because of how many guys they used the night prior, they they probably were available, but not available enough to get extra outs in that inning. So it forced early to stay in too long, and it gave the Yankees more life and gave them some hits, including the error as well in that inning to give them a 4-run cushion, which in normal, postseason baseball might not seem like a lot, but with the way Schlittler was pitching, it was a insurmountable lead that the Red Sox could not come back from.
Yeah, and let's talk about insurmountable lead with the Cubs over here, as they had a big couple of games to beat the Padres, especially that last game. They came up huge, and the Padres, as much as they tried to kind of crawl back in that final game, they fell short every single time.
Yeah, and think about how Game One started. The Padres jumped out early in that game, 1-0 on Matthew Boyd. It looked like the Padres were going to be able to get some good pitching in that game, and they did. Don't get me wrong; they did get a really strong outing, but a big fifth inning for the Cubs. They get back-to-back home runs from Seiya Suzuki and Carson Kelly. They go up 2-1 in that fifth inning. They get an extra run in the eighth and hold on for a 3-1 win in Game One. So for the Padres, they had to win game number two to force a game number three in this series, and they got some big contributions in that game number two. The big blow in that game was, of course, Manny Machado getting a big 2-run homer to put them up 3-0. But Mason Miller was dominant out of the bullpen. I think he faced 6 Cubs hitters in that game. He struck out 5 straight to start. The last hitter he faced, he hit by a pitch, and that took him out of the game. But he was unbelievable for the Padres in this entire series. They get a great start as well from Dylan Cease. Did get taken out early, and they had to go to the bullpen the rest of the way. But Cease was really good for them and set the tone to get them that 3-0 win in game two. Setting up an all important do or die game number three that happened on Thursday. The matchup was you saw Darvish getting the mound for the San Diego Padres. The Cubs, as we saw, were going with a little bit of a bullpen type game. They did start Jameson Taillon, but he got taken out after 4 innings. And back and forth, both teams were trading punches, but it was the Cubs striking first in the second inning. They get 2 runs from Dansby Swanson and Pete Crow Armstrong. The Padres did try to come back in the ninth inning. Michael Busch added a home run in the seventh to put them up 3-0. The Padres do get a run in the ninth. They did have the opportunity to tie the game. They had second and third, two outs in the ninth, but a flyout sealed the win for the Cubs. They hang on 3-1. Credit, there was also a really bad strike three call on Xander Bogaerts in that ninth inning that also played a factor in this game. The Padres were certainly not happy with the umpire crew after the series ended, but the Cubs do move on, as you mentioned. They are now moving on to the National League Divisional Series, and they will take on their division rivals, the Milwaukee Brewers, in the NLDS.
Yeah, and I don't think there's really much to add for me for this series, but it kind of said that it's the curse of Machado at this point. It's that bad juju, bad karma ever since he had that alpha fan. He hasn't gone back to the World Series, so it's going to continue. Unfortunately, it's a guy who was a surefire future Hall of Famer that continues to come up short.
Well, do you know have you seen the video of the Padres fans doing like a rap after they beat the Phillies during the series?
No, I have not.
It's like called like it's like a Padres like goose thing because there was like a goose on the field during that series at one point. And I'll send you the video. I don't. It's you're gonna cringe for it for sure, but that I think is the curse of this team because ever since that happened, they were expected to go to the World Series that year because they beat the Dodgers, and then they were up early in that series against the Phillies. Ever since that happened, I think that's been the curse of this team. They just haven't got anything going since then, and I thought for certain that the reason they were going to win this series was because of their pitching. Their pitching wasn't bad, don't get me wrong, but their offense really had no answer for the Cubs pitching. They did a great job in that series.
So I don't want to I don't want to get too far off topic here, but Manny Machado has played in almost 1,900 games and has 8,200 plate appearances. Right,
Yep.
right. Aaron Judge has 1,145 games played and little over 5,000 plate appearances. Did you know that Judge has a higher WAR and he was only one home run behind Machado?
I did not.
I just I can't believe that it is crazy if he actually had started his career in 2012 where he would be right now. But because both guys are about the same age, and Machado had 4 years on him, obviously all that time and all what yada yada whatever. But yeah, he actually surpassed his career WAR this year, so that is a fun fact. I'm not trying to I'll say this is all about the Aaron Judge, but the guy that's a surefire future Hall of Famer. You have something special over there. If you can get Aaron Judge's production for the next 4 years, this guy that could be dare I say a 90 WAR player. Is it
I
possible at
mean,
this
yeah,
point? It's certainly it's not outside the realm of possibility right now, but
yeah,
certainly on the lower end of that spectrum.
yes. So I mean, we'll see what the Padres have to do. I mean, the biggest thing for the Padres now is that they have an offseason that's really interesting because Michael King's going to be a free agent. Dylan Cease is going to be a free agent. That's just the note off the top of my head. I know they have more free agents upcoming this offseason. Um, so that's going to be something that we're going to see how many players they potentially lose for the upcoming off season and what their payroll is going to be. I mean, they're going to be able. We know how they are. They have the money to do stuff, but the way they went out, I'm I'm very curious to see how they're going to go after this. I'm looking at it right now. It looks like their current free agents are those two I just mentioned. They have Luis Arias on an arbitration contract. They have Nestor Cortez, Jason Adam, arbitration. Ramon Laureano, who they got, is a free agent. So a couple big names for this team that were key contributors for this entire team making it to the postseason. They will be free agents at the end of the year. So we'll see if they come back or if the Padres move on and try to sign someone different.
Yeah, but let's talk about the revenge that the Tigers got on the Guardians, and they complete their destiny of at least winning the wild card series and being the best team in the division. So they avoid complete mockery and buffoonery after this past month's collapse, and now they're moving on to the divisional.
Yeah, and they got a great start from Tarek Schoolball in Game One. Johnson. I mean, he shows why he's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And last year's Cy Young Award winner, 14 strikeouts in Game One. You really can't ask much more uh, from your starter. I mentioned that with Schlittler earlier, but Schoolball also did a phenomenal job for the Tigers in that first game. And Zach McKinstry gets the game-winning blow in the seventh inning with that RBI to put them up 2-1. That's all they would need in game one. They win that game by the final of 2-1. Really strong pitching to give them the 1-0 series lead. Guardians did respond back in game number two, and it was a game where the offense was a little bit slow for the Guardians in that one. They jumped out first. The Tigers responded to tie the game in the fourth inning, but a 5-run eighth inning for Cleveland. They get a home run, a couple home runs in that inning, I should say. Rocchio hits a home run to put them up 2-1. Later in the inning, they get a 3-run home from Bo Naylor to put them up 6-1. That would be the dagger and give the Guardians a 6-1 win to tie the series at one game apiece in game two. Setting up the do or die game number three on Thursday between these two teams. And the Tigers, again, were able to get the job done due to a couple things. It was a mixture of Jack Flaherty did just enough starting wise to win this game. Didn't get the win because they got taken out in the fifth inning with 2 outs, but their bullpen was phenomenal in this one. They only allowed 2 runs in late in the eighth inning, but that was after an error happened. But the Tigers' hitting did a really good job in that game. Some big time RBIs. Dylan Dingler hit a big home run in the the sixth inning as well to put the Tigers in a really good advantage. To put them up 2-1 at that point. A 7-run fourth inning was pretty much the dagger in this game. They hang on to win it 6-3, the final in this game number three. The Tigers, as you mentioned, get revenge from collapsing during the regular season, losing the division to the Guardians, and now they move on to Seattle to take on the Mariners in the ALDS.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this Tigers team because it seems like they're finally putting it together at the right time now. After that collapse, they avoid the embarrassment, and I think they're hot enough that where they could sweep the Mariners, or not sweep the Mariners, but beat the Mariners in a series here. But let's not save that for the predictions, and let's talk about the only sweep of this series, which was the Dodgers under the Reds, unfortunately. Which I thought after the second game the Reds had a chance, but clearly not.
No. Yeah, I mean, the Reds, as I mentioned, were just grateful to be here after the Mets collapse, and there just wasn't enough firepower for this team to get the job done. Game one, the Dodgers jumped out early in this game. Otani hits a home run in the first inning. Teoscar adds a home run in the third inning, a 3-run homer, and it was already a 5 of the game after 3 innings. And when the Reds had their ace on the mound, that's pretty much the dagger right there. Blake Snell went 7 innings for the Dodgers and that won 9 strikeouts. He was great for the Dodgers in that game. They win game one 10-5. Their bullpen gave up a couple runs, but didn't matter by that point. The Dodgers had things rolling in that first game. Game number two was probably the Reds' best chance to win at least a game in this series because they jumped out early on Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They went up 2-0 at the end of the first inning, but they let the Dodgers come back. That was really the problem for them in this game. And the Dodgers didn't even do it with the long ball. They just got a big couple of extra base hits, some RBI singles when needed it the most. A run in the third, two in the fourth. Big blow though. 4-run sixth inning. Dodgers win this game 8-4. Yamamoto was great in in this start. 6 2/3, 4 hits, 9 strikeouts in that game. The Reds pretty much went with a bullpen game in this one because Zach Little really didn't do too great in that start for Cincinnati. But as I mentioned, they're just happy they were even there at this point. But yeah, the Dodgers dominated fashion from the defending champions, and now they move on in an interesting match to take on the Phillies in the NLDS.
And I don't have too much more to add, Nick. So let's go straight into our rushing hour now. And first series we got to talk about is the dreaded number 4 New York Yankees going into Toronto to take on the Blue Jays, who have been blessed by the Buffalo Bills, by the way.
I was really annoyed that the Bills did that.
Remember, they cannot call themselves New York's football team
I wouldn't
if
have,
they do not cheer for New York's
yeah.
baseball team.
If you did that against the Red Sox, I don't care. That's whatever. But you doing that when you're facing the New York Yankees, like, come on. Also, I have other. There's another. I just saw this now. There's a manager hire. I just noticed, so I'll bring that up a little bit later after we do our mushing hour. But for this series, yeah, it's interesting. The Yankees, it's kind of similar to what happened with the Red Sox. They lost the season series to Toronto. It's the reason why they didn't get the division against the Blue Jays and why the Blue Jays had the home field advantage throughout the postseason. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I believe the stars have already been announced for this game. I would hope so, considering it's the day of the game. I think it's Luis Hill going against Kevin Gossman, and that is indeed the case. So I'm curious to see how the Yankees do in this series. If you can carry over that momentum for the Red Sox series, that definitely is going to help you at the end of the day. Toronto, it doesn't look like it's still going to be with Bo Bichette, so that's still a big loss for this team, regardless, even if they weren't to have the extra days off. Um, it's probably a homer pick. I really don't care because I'm not going to pick against my team. I want to give them a chance. I will go with the Yankees in this series 3 games to 1 to move on to the ALCS for the second straight year.
You know, Yankees 3-1, huh?
Yep.
Well, I picked was the Blue Jays, and I think the Yankees are going to win this. However, I can't redact my original
You
World
did pick the
Series
Blue
pick of
Jays, yeah.
Toronto Cubs. So I got to pick Blue Jays. I'll pick it 3-2 because it's the only way I see them winning this series. Without Bo Bichette, I do think the Yankees are going to win this series because if they had Bo Bichette here, I think it'd be a lot closer. That's almost a 900 OPS bat that they're not going to have this series. And it is what it is for the Blue Jays. I think they're ultimately going to lose now, but I got to pick them 3-2 just to stay consistent over here.
Yeah, you actually just saved me because I made a pick for the next series. I completely forgot what I did for the World Series pick. We did our wild card, so I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, this series should be a fun one. The Yankees, I'm curious. We'll see how they do in that series against Toronto. Um, but for most of the Blue Jays, it's gonna be their first time experience in the postseason too. So I think that's also something to note for this one. Their pitching is going to have to be lights out, though. They're going to have a chance. Gossman is going to give them an opportunity in game one. After that, That's where I think the big question mark is going to be for this team. I would assume, I have to look right now. I'm assuming Jose Barrios might be the game two starter for Toronto. And we know Max Fried's going for the Yankees. I know that is decided. The Blue Jays haven't decided on their second starter. So I think this is big for the Blue Jays. They have to win game one today, in my opinion. Because if they don't win game one, the Yankees, they look really in a really good spot because you have Fried going in game two, up a game in the series. That could go a long way for the Yankees in this one. So let's see if they get the job done today, New York. But Toronto really needs to win that first game, in my opinion. So we'll see if that happens. Let's go into our next series, Johnson. Tigers and the Mariners. The Mariners, the AL West champions, taking on the Tigers, who beat the Guardians in the AL wild card. Who do you have in that matchup?
You know who I have here. I have to go Seattle, unfortunately. Um, as strange as it sounds, I do want the Tigers to win. I did have the Tigers winning this series 3-2, unfortunately. Then I kind of had a more realistic approach, and I think Seattle's going to continue their historic season. So I think the Tigers end here, and Seattle picks up and moves on to the championship series.
Yeah, I completely forgot I put the Mariners in my World Series the last pod. So I was originally going to say the Tigers, but then I was like,
Yeah,
oh, that's
don't get
right.
me wrong. It'd be really fun. I want to see the Tigers win it, but I don't see it being possible. I think they're just completely outgunned at almost every position.
I just think the problem for the Tigers is that the Mariners have more depth at pitching. The Tigers have the pitching depth, don't get me wrong, but the Mariners have a better after their ace. Like, you have Schoolball for the Tigers, and Casey Mize is good, and Flaherty is good. Those are nice 1-2 after. But for the Mariners, you have Gilbert, you have Castillo, you have Wu, you have Bryce Miller. You have four guys right there. And even if they don't use Miller as a starter, they still have a good top three for the first couple of games in that series. So we'll see what happens in game one. Of course, it's going to be
I do
Schoolball.
want to point out one thing though.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or George
since
Kirby, too.
since
Sorry.
Suarez got to the Mariners, he has really cooled off. This
Yeah.
is not the first half Suarez we saw with
It was
30
going to
home
happen.
runs. I mean, no, but it's he's
This happens.
batting.
He does it
He's
all the
batting
time.
below the Mendoza line though.
He
He's
does it all
batting
the he does it
not
all the time.
900 right or .190.
Yeah.
He's batting below the Mendoza line, so that's something to look out for because if he has a resurgence here, it's not going to be close.
Well, keep in mind that he and Naylor were still big contributors at one point for them, at least. It wasn't completely during that stretch where they went on an insane run to end the season, but they still were big for them at certain points in the season to help them get to the spot where they stole the division away from the Astros. Um, I think it's just the series is going to come down to pitching. I keep saying it a lot. You have two good rotations. The Tigers, I think, are going with a bullpen game in game one now that I'm looking at it. So, because you can't really go with Schoolball after he pitched in game one against Cleveland. I think Schoolball might probably start game two, if I had to guess. And that's indeed the case. So it's going to be Schoolball versus Castillo tomorrow. So if the Tigers can steal game one, that goes a long way for Detroit to pulling off the series. I think if they steal game one, obviously it's probably easier said than done than I'm saying this, but they steal game one. My opinion, the series is probably a wrap because if you steal that first game when the Mariners are throwing Kirby on the mound and you're going with, I believe Troy Melton is their starter, then you're asking Schoolboy to go on the mound tomorrow with a 1-0 series lead, and it pretty much feels like it's game over and it's going to be 2-0 Detroit heading back to Detroit. So Mariners need to win this game, just like I mentioned with the Blue Jays at home today. The Mariners need to win this first game more than ever.
And let's bring up our next series here. We have the number 4 Cubs going into Milwaukee, take on the number 1 Brewers here. Uh, Cubs fairy tale. I have faith that they're going to win this. I think they're a better team than the Brewers. The Brewers have better pitching. That's what they got. And if the bats for the Cubs stay hot, they got this. So it's going to be classic: better pitching versus better hitting. And and there's I think the fielding's a lot better on Chicago's side as
Oh,
well.
it's
So
definitely better. The Cubs have the
yeah.
best feeling
So
of the two.
so best hitting, best defense versus best pitching. So it's gonna be very interesting.
I'm gonna go with Milwaukee. Um, I'm not too confident because we know the Brewers are eventually going to have that series where we see peak Milwaukee Brewers and they unfortunately choke. No offense, Brewer fans, but it does happen a lot, unfortunately. Um, look no further to what happened last year against the Mets in the wild card. I look at it like this: Milwaukee, in my opinion, has that edge over the Cubs in to me, just because you're going with Freddie Peralta in Game One against Matthew Boyd, who we've already seen so far this postseason. And Boyd was great in that first game for the Cubs against the Padres. Peralta, in my opinion, if not for Paul Skeens in the NL, would probably win the Cy Young. He had a great year for the Brewers, and this team has a lot of good players around them that can get them the job done and win this series. I just look at it like this: I think the Brewers on paper are just a slight edge over the Cubs because of a couple of things. They have all around a lineup that can get them big time hits. Their rotation has been solid all season, but the bullpen, I think, is the big difference of this series. The Brewers did lose their closer earlier in the year, um, but they've been still firing on all cylinders. That was Meagle that got hurt. But you have guys like Uribe that have been really contributing for them all pretty much all season in that bullpen. I think the bullpen is the difference maker of this series. I think the Brewers just slightly out edge the Cubs in terms of bullpen. So I'll go with Milwaukee to win this series 3-2 to move on to the NLCS.
All right, and the last game we have are the number 3 Dodgers versus number 2 Phillies. So the Dodgers are not hosting a playoff series this postseason, which is told everyone at the beginning of the season you'd be surprised, but I'm not really that surprised. I think all year they've been about the 4th best team in the NL, and they end up with 3 seeds. I think the Cubs are a little bit better, so swap those rankings. That's where you get them. But with that being said, I think the Dodgers are going to beat the Phillies 3-2 in this series.
I'm with you with the Dodgers, but I got them winning at home 3-1. No offense to the Phillies, it comes down to what they lost at the end of the season. Remember, they lost Zach Wheeler at the end of the year. When you lose your ace that late in the season, that's really a killer. We're gonna see Ohtani pitch Game 1 for the Dodgers against Christopher Sanchez. So I said it for the Blue Jays and the Mariners today already. If the Phillies win Game 1, that's gonna go a long way, because if you're able to steal a game against the Dodgers where you have Sanchez going, Otani, that's huge if you can steal the game. Right now, it looks like Otani's Game 1, Snell is going to be Game 2, and then the Phillies will have to see who they pitch in Game 2. It probably would be Ranger Suarez, you would have to think, but I don't know. I have the Dodgers winning this 3-1. I just think the Dodgers right now, it's really tough to pick against them. The Phillies have a great lineup from top to bottom, but you can say the same thing about the Dodgers. The only thing that scares me about the Dodgers is their bullpen. And what do the Phillies have? A really strong bullpen. So the Phillies have one thing that the Dodgers don't. It's that bullpen depth. I just think at the end of the day, for Philly, that something happens to them in the playoffs when they face these certain teams. We saw it last year with the Mets. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens again this year with this time with the Dodgers. So I'll go with Dodgers 3-1. They get the job done at home in LA, and they'll move on to the NLDS or NLCS, excuse me.
All right, Nick, and that brings up our World Series predictions. I'm going to stick with Toronto Cubs. Are you going to
I'll
deviate
stick
at all?
Dodgers. I'm just gonna stick Dodgers Mariners. I'm not doing that to the Yankees right now.
All right, and then there you have it. So, Nick, if you don't have anything else, just bring us home.
Bring up that news I was mentioning earlier on. I This must have happened yesterday at some point. I didn't really see it yesterday. I heard the rumor about this, but I didn't fully see it until now. It looks like Skip Schumacher is going to be the new manager of the Texas Rangers, going to be replacing Bruce Bochy after him and the Rangers parted ways this offseason. Bochy, I think, is going to the Giants to be either the manager again or be in a front office role, maybe with Buster Posey. But Skip Schumacher from his time
Yeah,
in the
yeah, he had
Marlins.
one. I mean, he was a good manager, and then Kim ruined the team. So,
Yeah, yeah. But man, maybe that sparks something for the Rangers. I'm not gonna bite the bullet again and have faith in them going into next season like I did earlier in the year. But Schumacher's a fine manager.
Remember, don't tell me to be
Outcome.
and anyone. Don't tell me to be salty at all. You just don't like her because whatever. Like no, if she was a really good GM, she'd still be there after only 2 seasons. But
Yeah,
I don't even know what she's up to. She's
yeah. Who
doing
knows?
something.
Who knows? Um, yeah, yeah. That's pretty much it for me. But Johnson, I know there is something that you brought up on the football show yesterday that maybe you want to bring up today as well in
Yeah.
terms of a card show we're doing in a
Yep.
couple of
Staten
days.
Island Card Show, October 18th, St. Joseph St. Thomas School in Staten Island, 9:30 to I think no, I'm sorry, 9 to 3:30, excuse me. 50 McGuire Avenue in Staten Island. That's the Staten Island Card Show on October 18th. 50 McGuire Avenue, St. Joseph St. Thomas, Staten Island, New York.
That should be a fun one. Just 2 weeks time as of this recording on the 18th, today being October 4th. So yeah, we'll see you all there at that show, and we'll see where we are in the MLB postseason by the time we get to that show in just a couple of weeks' time. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The Wild Card Series is done, and now we move on into the Divisional Series. We have the Yankees and the Blue Jays, Tigers and the Mariners, Cubs and Brewers, and the Dodgers and the Phillies. Which teams will move on to the respective championship series? We're currently at 8 teams. We will be down to 4 teams the next time Andrew and I join you here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by my co-host Andrew Johnson for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.